I can see you.
I cannot see you in the screen yet. Yeah, there you are.
Buttons.
Hola.
Okay, hi. And yeah, and I'm one of the online moderators with Camila, who, yeah. So, so are we ready to start, or is it?
We're ready. Okay, but let's see.
Um, Hi everyone. We'll just open the event and then I'll hand over while Tatovic. So my name is Henriette Esterhuizen. Can you all hear me? And I guess I'm from the Association for Progressive Communications, but I'm actually the convener of the African School of Internet Governance. And I have had the privilege of collaborating with UNESCO and CETIC and NIC.BR in the revision of the Internet Universality Indicator. So I should be sitting in the middle. So as you probably all will know, as you probably all know, that this dynamic coalition session is being co-organized by two dynamic coalitions. Sorry, you know what has happened here? Why I have a weird expression on my face is that my channel switched to another workshop. Let me take this off. So the background to this session is that two dynamic coalitions are co-organizing it. The Internet Universality Dynamic Coalition, which was established in 2021, I think, launched at the Poland IGF, which is made up of a community of stakeholders from countries that have applied or would like to apply the UNESCO Internet Universality Indicators, which is a self-organized bottom-up framework for assessing the state of Internet universality at a national level that was launched by UNESCO in 2018. And then the other dynamic coalition that is organizing this session together is the Dynamic Coalition on Schools of Internet Governance. And on this note, I'm actually going to hand over to Olga and James. And James is the co-facilitator with Tatovic, and they will tell you more about the session and what to expect. So over to the SIG side of the SIG, of the
Okay.
DC.
Thank you very much, Henriette, and thank you very much for the for allowing us to do this co-hosted workshop of these two dynamic coalitions. I think they perfectly match. The Dynamic Coalition of Schools of Internet Governance gathers the different schools of internet governance that exist. They started with one EuroSIG, led by Professor Wolfgang Klangwächter and Sandra Hoffenrichter. That was the first one, almost 20 years so far. Yes, Sandra? Yes. And then we started in Latin America with the South School on Internet Governance. We will organize our 17th. But after that, there are many other initiatives. The African School of Internet Governance that has been organized 10 years. 11 years, and then many other national initiatives like the Brazil Internet Governance. I saw our colleague from Brazil over there. Hola. And some other, I will hand out to James to speak more. Especially in Africa, there are several national initiatives. I was invited to speak at the Afghanistan School on Internet Governance 2 weeks ago. I woke up at 2 a.m. in my home, Buenos Aires, to participate. I was really very honored to be invited to share our experiences. Which is the purpose of the schools? Is to train about all aspects related with internet governance and fundamentally open the door to people who are not so much included in this community, explain which are the policy issues, the technical concepts that they must have, and which are the spaces where they can participate, so they can bring home in relation with their own interests what is important to have in mind at the national or regional level. And also what we have learned, and I think other colleagues from other SIGs should know, is the fantastic network that is created in between the fellows and experts. And I will hand over to James. Maybe he can share with us some comments.
All right, thank you very much, Olga, and I think it's a pleasure to be here on this session. and I'm so much excited about the School on Internet Governance. One thing that I'm so much happy about the school is the fact that we are able to do capacity, development, and that has been one of the pedestal through which we're able to reach out to other stakeholders, especially when it comes to issue of internet governance. And in Africa, a lot of school has sprung up. A very good example is, of course, the Nigerian School on Internet Governance. We had the fifth session, this year, and of course, we've been consistent with that. And apart from that, I know that other schools, abound in Africa. Another one is the Ghanaian School on Internet Governance. I know about the Kenya School on Internet Governance. That is from the eastern part of Africa. And yesterday, I think my colleague from Niger was also in the annual general meeting, and he shared his experience. That is Niger School on Internet Governance. As a matter of fact, I see a link between, by the way, I'm from Internet Society. I'm the president of Internet Society in Nigeria. So I see a link between, Internet Society to a large extent and the school, because we observe that that is a very good initiative for us to push, capacity building, and that has been working. I'll give you an example. Take, for example, last year, after the school in Nigeria, what we normally do is that we tell the fellows, look, it is not just about acquiring the knowledge. What do you do with the knowledge? You need to start to engage within the ecosystem. And I think that is very important. That should be one of the takeaways for each and every one of us after, the school. Just let the fellows loose, let them start to engage within the ecosystem. That is one of the things we normally. In fact, I'm thinking now that probably we're going to make it like a model in our curriculum to see how we can, showcase some of those, niche, some of those ecosystem where they can start to engage within the bigger internet space. And I think that helped us last year, because the feedback I'm getting, and as a matter of fact, sorry, I'm jumping. As a matter of fact, I now observe that that may be a very good indicator for us to have feedback. Okay, how much engagement have you had even within the last 1 year after you've been a fellow, after you've come out of the School on Internet Governance? So last year, I observed that some of our fellows that we advised that, look, you need to engage. No, it's just not a matter of just acquiring certificate. No, it's about using that knowledge within the ecosystem. I observed that some of them have started engaging within the ecosystem, and we're getting a very good report, from their performances. And even this year, I think this year we had a session in, October, yeah. And after that, okay, this December, October, November, December. After that, we've started getting, information about the kind of engagement they've been involved in, and some of them have been organizing, events on, cybersecurity, talking about, child online safety, human rights issues, and so on and so forth. How I got to know is based on the fact that in most of those events, they do, send invitations to me. Oh, please, can you come and, attend our event? Although I may not be able to attend all the events, but at least that feedback mechanism has shown that, okay, look, I think the school is working. And I believe that this is one of the things that probably we need to take away from this session, that, okay, even after the school, the fellows, well, we call them fellows in NSIG. I wouldn't know if there is any other parlance that is being used in other jurisdictions. The fellows should engage in the industry, within the ecosystem. And even in the IGF space, I believe that some of them should be around here to have conversations on some of those, hot topics, which I think is going to be a way of, advancing this same conversation all about internet governance. So without wasting time, I think this afternoon we're going to be, we're having conversations about the school. And of course, we want to see how we can now synergize, between the school coalition and the IUI, And for me, I think we should start to think about how we can integrate some of the IUIs, as part of the modules that can be, taught in the school. As a matter of fact, when we were having our discussion yesterday, you remember that I made mention of the fact that, okay, we should be looking at, okay, IUI being a model as part of the school. However, since we're trying to look at, okay, there are national schools, there are regional schools, we are thinking there should be some form of handshake, right? So maybe we have like primary modules, right? So, but what I'm not too sure of now is this IUI module that I'm proposing. I don't know probably if it should be part of the primary module or probably maybe something that we need to take a second look at, okay, this should be around it. So I think that's some of the things we need to, have conversations on. So let me open the floor, right?
I think Tatevik is next.
Yeah,
Okay,
if
okay,
I
okay.
may, if I may jump in, this is Avery. Yes, just I'm very glad that the two groups came together. As far as the agenda goes, just to let people know, having done these quick introductions, the first thing was to get a quick introduction to IUI, which Tatevik will go. And then there were basically two discussions planned on the agenda. The first one is to talk about existing teaching experience. So this is something, for example, Henriette has done. Ariunzel, if I've pronounced it correctly, has also done. And then a roundtable of those of you that are there and online, of anyone that has been teaching it or has been looking at it. And then go into looking at curricula and IUI and how we fit that in. And Olga will lead off that discussion with Henriette leading off the one before and then again going to a roundtable. So at this point, I'd really like to pass it off to Tatevik, and thank you all for the introductions. Thank you all for having come to this joint. I'm really quite excited that it was able to come together. Thank you.
Very much, Avri and James and Olga for the introduction and Avri for the clarification. As Avri mentioned, my name is Tatevik Grigorian and I work for UNESCO. I am leading the UNESCO's activities on Romex IUI, as well as I'm coordinating the dynamic coalition on the Internet Universality indicators. I'm very happy that we could these two dynamic coalitions could come together to discuss what I see as a further cooperation, or we are cooperating with, working with some schools, including Africa School on Internet Governance. But I wanted to give a quick introduction on the Romex, very quick, because our dynamic coalition is basically based on Internet Universality of Romex indicators. We basically provide, including through this dynamic coalition, provide this tool for analysis on internet development, as well as we use it as a method sort of to foster multi-stakeholder cooperation and discussions and contributions. Very quickly, why do we have this tool? It was following UNESCO's governing body decision endorsement of Internet Universality and its 4 principles, which state that the internet should be based on rights, should be open and accessible to all, and nurtured and governed by multi-stakeholder participation. Following the endorsement of these principles, we then created this framework, but then we thought that in addition to these principles, an important issue is the cross-cutting issues that we should consider, such as gender equality, safety and security online, and so we did that and added the X category, which stands for cross-cutting issues. So this framework, what is this framework? This framework is a set of indicators based on these principles and thematic areas in each principle, which help the stakeholders that use the framework to assess the development of their internet development at the national level without doing any ranking or any comparison, to see where the gaps are, where the strengths are, and based on this analysis to propose actionable policy recommendations to improve the situation in the country at the national level. And all of this is happening under not under together with the multi-stakeholder advisory board, which is set up at the initial stage of the assessment, that brings together diverse stakeholder groups, government, private sector, civil society organizations, academia, to contribute to the research and then at a later stage to validate it. So this is how the final product work looks like following the completion of the assessment. I must say that the IUIs have been conducted in over 40 countries, and you can see the distribution per region and countries. I think the leading region is Africa. So far, 17 African countries have done the assessment with support from UNESCO, and Kenya being one of the first country to do a follow-up second assessment to see and monitor the progress. So we've had this framework since 2018, and as we reached the which was can you when we reached the 5-year mark, and as it was already envisaged, UNESCO started the revision process to make sure that the indicators remain relevant, to incorporate the lessons learned from all these countries, to ensure that both the relevance and more faster implementation of the IUIs, implementation and then publication, and to see and incorporate these new thematic areas. So we initiated the work, and we worked together with CETIC.br, NIC.br, and we have Fabio who played a critical role in leading, together with UNESCO, the revision process. We have Andiet, who has been essential. She was the member, she was managing the project when we initially were creating the IUIs, and also she's been in the steering committee for the revision, and of course she's been doing lots of other things to support and promote both the revision and the framework. So after wide consultations, public consultations, and also targeted interviews, I'm very happy to say that on Sunday we launched the enhanced indicators, and you can see, unfortunately or fortunately, the indicators were really popular, so we ran out of copies, but I'm more than happy to share the link with you. I am cautious of time, but just to give you a look of some key figures here, we maintain the ROMEX principles and indicators as the basis because they remain relevant, they remain essential, but we reduce the number of the indicators and the questions. Here you can see, for example, for each category we have overarching questions, which I will be more than happy again to share with you. And on this slide, I'm just demonstrating the creation of 2 new topics: advanced digital technologies, mainly focusing on AI, and also something which wasn't in the initial indicators, the environmental impact. And of course, we've done, in addition to reducing the number of, we've done significant revision of the themes to make sure, as I mentioned, they remain relevant and impactful. I think this was all I wanted to say. Here you can just see the link to our website and the Dynamic Coalition, and of course my contact number. I'm happy to liaise and give more information. I think my presentation of the IUIs end here, but I continue with the conversation. I'd like to give the floor now to Aniette. I gave a very brief introduction to Aniette, but in addition to what I've mentioned already, Aniette, we've been also working with Aniette. She's the convener of the African School on Internet Governance, and I think it's been the second year, Aniette. No, no, since you talk about, since we have IUI, no? At least it's the second year for me.
Just ask me the question.
Okay.
Then I'll answer that question. But ask me the question in the agenda.
I think you have the question. I just basically wanted to speak. We've been we had the IUIs in the. I'm just trying to stop my presentation. Stop sharing. Yes.
So the question is, well, I'll answer the question. So the question is how, what have we learned from this in the case of the African context? And I think we'll have the same question going to Brazil. From having this kind of collaboration between the IUIs and the school. And I think, Tatevik, something that didn't occur to me until right this minute is that, in fact, the collaboration goes back to before the IUIs existed. And I think in that sense, at AfriSIC, we actually are fairly privileged in that way, because when the Rome X, so UNESCO, as Tatevik explained, the indicators are based on these principles of internet universality, which actually emerged from the IGF. And I think that's something UNESCO brought to the Internet Governance Forum in 2013. Initially, that was the first public exposure of the idea of rights, openness, accessibility, and multi-stakeholder being core principles for internet universality. The internet governance community liked the idea, and UNESCO then worked with it. And they convened this huge big event in Paris in 2015, where people from all over the world could participate, a little bit like Net Mondial in 2014. They could submit textual inputs, and they could also participate in the event to take these principles and work with them as a framework for actually collaborative assessment of where are we going with the internet? Are we moving towards more internet universality or less, but at a national level? And because the African School, I think it was in 2015 that UNESCO first used the African School as a platform for sharing these ideas and getting feedback. And I guess that's something that also answers, that question. Why are schools of IG a useful platform for UNESCO in this case, but I think it applies to other people as well. It's a platform where you get a cross-section. As James was saying, it's a cross-section of people from different stakeholder groups. They are intergenerational. Some are professionals. I see James there. We have a senior government official from Zimbabwe who's an alumni of AfriSIC, and we have people that are starting their careers as well. So it gives you that opportunity, and because it's smaller than a whole IGF, you're able to have, I think, more focused discussion. I think one of the things that then emerged when we developed the indicators was that rights, openness, accessibility, and multi-stakeholder are not enough. The cross-cutting issues, there are so many and they're so important. Gender equality, children's rights, security and safety and stability. I think now I'm looking there at Fabio, we're looking at artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, climate change. So the number of and the range of cross-cutting issues also are growing. And there again, I think the Schools of Internet Governance gives UNESCO an opportunity to get feedback on whether the way you're thinking about this. And then I think the big learning really is that I think we've learned in the Schools of Internet Governance that convening a multi-stakeholder event is not easy. You need to do it with care, with thought. We use devices, such as some of us use the idea of the practicum, where you have role play or negotiated output from the different stakeholders. Some schools of internet governance use small group discussions, but they are, I believe, they are extremely powerful in breaking through the kind of the gloss, the veneer, the surface, the kind of kumbaya surface of the wonderful multi-stakeholder process. I think in schools of internet governance, where people are in a safe, small, more internet space, you get a much better understanding of the tensions that are between stakeholder groups, the different interests, the different understandings. And because the indicators are so deeply committed to strengthening the multi-stakeholder process, I think that's also very useful for the multi-stakeholder process.
Very much, Andy.
For the indicators, sorry.
I think, yes, you made references, but you talked about how SIGs are excellent platform for the IUIs, which we acknowledge and appreciate a lot. How about you reflect on the other way around?
The schools for the IUIs, for UNESCO.
The IUIs for schools.
The IUIs have been useful for schools, and I think maybe that responds quite a bit to the second question, which is how can we use the Internet Universality indicators as we think and plan and evolve our curriculum. I think one of the challenges, I can speak for AfriSig, a little bit for EuroSig, because I sometimes am faculty, sometimes at the North African School as well, but I think in the schools, we have to respond to a changing context. The internet governance environment isn't static, and the challenges that we face and that we try to address with internet governance evolve as well. I'm not sure how many schools of IG are dealing with climate change. In AfriSig, we've started for the last few years adding a module on internet governance and environmental sustainability, for example. I think what the Rome X principles gives us is a framework to look at how we balance that fairly technical baseline curriculum that we need to keep doing well, how the internet works, how internet governance takes place, where and by whom, what kind of decision is made, and how to participate, with more of the social implications, the social, environmental, political challenges that digitalization and the internet addresses. And I think so, I mean, for us in AfriSig, we've always had a very strong focus on digital inclusion and human rights. But I think that rights, openness, multi-stakeholder and accessibility, it's a useful checklist. You know, for example, if you look at openness, openness involves competition. Competition is trade. I mean, for this year at AfriSig, we focused on the African Union's African Continental Free Trade Area's digital protocol, which is supposed to make it much easier for African businesses to trade across borders and deal with data flows across borders, but in ways that do not violate national sovereignty or security or personal data protection. And I think it's that sort of broad overview of the rights, openness, accessibility, and multi-stakeholder, plus the cross-cutting, that for us has been quite a useful frame of reference. Even if we don't use it always consciously, I think it creates a useful frame of reference for assessing whether your school's curriculum is succeeding in balancing and combining both the more traditional IG topics and the emerging IG topics. It also allows you to localize them, to approach your curriculum in a way that is not imported from somewhere else, but that is relevant to your region and to the people in your school. So for us, that I think has been quite useful, and the partnership with UNESCO has been useful in that respect. Also, just having the UNESCO staff in the room is useful as well.
Thank you very much, Andit, and it's very delightful to be in the same room with all these wonderful people from diverse backgrounds. And actually now, thank you for that comprehensive remarks. I wanted to we talked about the multi-stakeholderism. I wanted to turn to Arjun Zul, who not only has led, who is joining us online. She not only led the IUI assessment in Mongolia, but I wanted her to bring the viewpoint from the NGO. She's working on Adina Equal Opportunity NGO, and I just wanted to ask you, Arjun Zul, to give your experience in an NGO-led efforts to promote digital inclusion and right-based approaches. And I wanted you to reflect, please, on why do you think the promotion of IOS through the schools of the internet governance could be important for NGOs? Arjun Zul, can you hear us, or?
Is she unmuted?
She's
I
online.
I see that she is online, but I see that her microphone is still muted, as is her camera.
Adi, can you unmute your camera to speak, please? Okay, I think perhaps in the interest of time, we could move to the next speaker while she would try perhaps to solve the issue. Yes? Last call, Arjun Zul.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was unmuted. Now I think it's working.
Did you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
good.
hear you.
Over to you,
Can you hear
please.
me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So hello all. I'm very happy to be a part of this event, and again, congratulations for the UNESCO team and also the other steering committee to launching the updated IUI. And as I led the international national assessment team to conduct IUI in Mongolia first time in 2021, I realized that NGO and especially also the civil society organizations' role to implement and enforce the recommendation from the IUI findings are very crucial because NGOs and civil society organizations have better understanding about their community needs, what works in the field and what doesn't work in a grassroots level compared to the government, right? So in Mongolian case, IUI was led and conducted by the NGO. Therefore, I believe we included more voices from the diverse groups, such as communities who work for the human rights, communities who work with the blind community, NGOs working for the deaf community, and NGOs and civil societies who work also and collaborate with the older communities, as well as we also include the Kazakh community whose first language is not Mongolian. And findings of Mongolian National Assessment of IUI suggested that there were many rooms to improve in all row mix pillars, of course. So we have been promoting the findings throughout our work. For example, together with currently our team, we are creating a website where secondary school teachers can learn about how to work with the children with disabilities, including the children with visual impairment, children with hearing impairment, children with speech impairment, children with autism, or children with ADHD, and so on. So we have also assumed among the teachers who would use our website, they may have also certain impairment which can also restrict their access to use our website. So we co-designed our website with the IT guys and also teachers, and teachers with old age and teachers who with also low digital literacy, as well as persons with disability. And then because the Mongolian IO report displayed that government websites were not really accessible for everyone, especially for the persons with disability and old senior citizens, I would say, we want to show, we want to make our website as a good example for the government agencies and public school principals and teachers, because back in 2021, we even couldn't find the single website which is accessible for everyone. So with this, our current initiative, we really want to show the best example and also the model for the government officials, especially for the secondary schools, especially during this time, they were using a lot of, the digital training module and the digital training modules, which is not yet accessible for everyone. We changed their mindset and we changed their attitude and we changed the way to work on it. So the website will be launched in, we hope it will be, we will launch it in the mid-January in 2025. And then that website will be also used in a nationwide for all of the secondary school teachers who work with the children with disability and also school principal itself. I hope they will learn from our initiative and the practices to produce and create their own, the online learning platform to be more accessible for everyone. Because if the school, the resource material is not accessible and not user friendly for its users, then it's what's the meaning, right? So that's what we want to promote in Mongolia at the moment. And I'm aware of that there's very less time, so that's it from my side. If there is any question, I'm happy to answer. Over to you, Devik.
Thank you very much, Adi. I forgot to mention that in addition to her role and her work on the IUS, she also contributed greatly to the revision of the revision of the IUIs. She was a member of the steering committee for the revision. And thank you, Ajunzul, for your great contributions to the revision and the new enhanced indicators. I think I will not ask you the follow-up question, Ajunzul, cautious of time. I will now hand over. Thank you so much. I will hand over.
Jumping in again. I'm not sure that we're that short on time. Correct me, but this is a 90-minute session, I believe. And so there is some time. Everybody keeps worrying about time, but I just want to make sure that we're okay on time and we're only about halfway through at this point. If
According, we were supposed to finish at 1, IUI was supposed to finish at 1:45. So
I think everyone is desperate for the IGF to end because it's the last day and we're all exhausted.
Oh, okay, fine. If it's self-generated, I just wanted to make sure we're feeling limited by the schedule.
I'll hand over. Okay. What?
There's a question.
There's a question, please.
Thank you. Sandra Hoferichter from the European Summer School on Internet Governance. Is it the right time to ask question, or was there a plan to do it at the very end of the session? It's always the right time. Thank you very much. I think it comes very timely because Tadevik just described the revision of the indicators. And I have two questions, and they are fairly related but go in the same direction. I've heard from several governments, even those who did the first assessment of the Rome indicators, that this is such a lengthy process and that takes so much time that for some governments or for some nations, it will be hard to do it for the first time. And those who did it already will possibly not have the resources to do it for a second time. But I understood, on the other hand, that the benefit of those indicators are only developed or only being seen when you are doing it several times, so that you see how your country is developing. So my question here, and that's the first, would be, in the revision or later on, is this on your radar that this process should be streamlined a little bit more so that it is not so exhaustive and that it can be done by several governments that at the moment struggle with resources? And a little bit related to that, at the moment it's not existing, and we had the Rome indicators at the summer school not this year, but last year, but it was merely a presentation of that it exists. Since the practicum is regarded a very useful element in all these schools, is there a way, or can we maybe start thinking about how we do a mini assessment provided by and facilitated by UNESCO in those schools, so that basically when we are doing the practicum, this Rome assessment could be the practicum, but of course that needs to be a very kind of try or just to show how it works, and then the multipliers that are attending the SIGs could then maybe lobby to include it in the several countries. So these were the two questions. Thank you.
Much, Sandra, for these questions. I think Aliet really wants to answer the second question, and Aliet really wants Fabio to answer the first question. So I won't monopolize it. But Fabio, please, do you want to take the first question, or do you want to start with the second?
That is provided you heard it. Fabio, did you hear the question? Were you listening? Good. Now you can answer.
No, thank you, Henriette. No, I'm Fabio Seni. I'm from Brazil, from NIC.br, and I can talk about the Brazilian experience. I cannot talk for all the countries, but I agree with you that yes, the first assessment was really time consuming. We had to first, because you had to mobilize the stakeholders that are needed for the process, and then you have to understand what are the sources that are available or not available in your country. So I agree that there is a process, there is more time consuming, but we had the revision of the IY take this into consideration. So we had a reduced number of questions and indicators in the second version, which is I think it's more accessible to our group of different countries. The second thing is that when you were doing the second assessment, you can also take into advantage what you did in the first one. So first, legal aspects that don't change like each year or each 5 years. You can use the same material to rely on, and you can just update the more quantitative and the aspects that are more dynamic into the process. So I do think that a group of countries can do the second version in a more easy way. And finally, just to mention that this framework has proven to be very effective in very different contexts. So if you take G20 large countries as Germany, Brazil, and Argentina did the process, as well as small islands in the Pacific region. So it's very flexible to be adaptable to the context of the different countries. So I do think that this is a good contribution.
Thank you. I also wanted to point out that we do have Poncelet online with his hand up, so please fit him into your queue.
Should we take his question before we respond, Avri? Maybe we should.
Yeah, I think we should. His
Let's
hand's been
hear.
up for a while, so thank you.
Consulate, let's hear you. Except now we have to go because I think our tech support don't really follow the.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I wish to thank all the speakers. I'll first like to state first, as the lead researcher for the recently completed IOI for the Gambia, that one thing that was good for the success of that the IOI for the Gambia was the ability that we had an advisory body that comprised of all stakeholders from various institutions and organizations who have been part of our National Internet Governance Initiative. So that was a success, but it was also difficult sometimes getting data from our Ministry of Finance that to input some certain data. Governments were not able to do it. So I would like to hear advice from UNESCO. How do you go about that when governments take their time in releasing such data for the IUI? And I want to commend Harriet for what she has been doing with the African School of Internet Governance, but there's something I would like to throw to her, like to get our governments more involved. Are there possibilities, like example, at the recent concluded school in Addis Ababa, to say, okay, we are having it in this region this year, we want governments to nominate, based on gender equity, young professionals from their various Ministry of Digital Economy to attend from that region. If it's in North Africa, next time, North African countries will nominate. So we have governments also being involved in this school, their young professionals. Thank you. I'm sorry for taking your time.
Shall I respond? Thanks very much, Poncelet. Actually, we had a fantastic young woman from the Gambian government who was nominated by the Gambian government this year. And I think we had Cameroon, we had Zambia, we had about 5 governments this year. And then we had about 7 parliamentarians, including a senator from Nigeria who's here. So we do that, Poncelet, and we always have government participation. I think the response from governments, many of the governments that we invite to nominate don't always respond, but the ones that do remain partners for life. So it's really good. So and I think you're absolutely right. I don't think you can have an effective multi-stakeholder leadership development event if you don't have government in the room. I just want to respond to Sandra's. I think it's a fantastic idea, Sandra, and I think a national school could do it at a national level. And if the school, like I know some, I think James, you said the Nigerian school is 3 days. Some schools are not as long as AfriSig or EuroSig. I'm not sure how long the South School is, but you could then have your practicum be that advisory committee, because as Poncelet said, that's not easy, but it's very important. And as Fabio also mentioned, the IUI methodology is that you establish a multi-stakeholder advisory board. So your role play or your practicing exercise at the school could either to have maybe an imaginary country, and you assess that imaginary country. That could be really quite fun. And the people in the school have to be national statistical agencies, internet service providers associations, researchers, teachers, child rights activists, feminist activists, whatever. You can really play with that idea. If it's a kind of imaginary country, but if it's a real country, you can actually make it focused on how do you convene the MAB? How do you identify data sources? So Sandra, I really love that idea. I think I'd be very happy to do that, actually. I think it would be good for the IUIs, because the IUIs will also learn from that. UNESCO will learn from that as well. Plus, it will be a great exercise for the school, particularly because I think it will make the technical people, it will force them to think a little bit about what are the social impact, what are the gender equity components of a universal interoperable internet. And likewise, it will make the social people, the human rights people, or the content people think a little bit more about the infrastructure, its security, how stable it is, and so on. So I really love that idea.
Thanks very much for the questions and answers. I think I'll hand over now to James and Olga to move forward with the rest of the agenda.
All right, thank you, Tivik. Thank you very much, and thank you for those brilliant ideas. All right, before we advance, I just want to quickly add something, because I now realize that if you really want to do a very good assessment of IUI, right, I think you need a very good time. It's not something that you can say, okay, you want to do in 3 days, right? And take, for example, like in the Nigerian School on Internet Governance, like I explained yesterday, what we normally do, right, apart from the intensive classes, right, that we do in 3 days, we do have, like a virtual session. And even this year, we had it for like 5 weeks, right? And I realized that has helped a lot. Why? Because we're able to organize something like, we call it colloquium, right? Well, you can call it symposium, you can call it anything, but we call it colloquium. Just like Harriet was saying the other time, as she was talking about it, I was just figuring out what we did in line with that. So we call it colloquium, right? So we created 4 groups, okay, and in each group we have to have people that we act roles, okay. So, and I think this is going to be a very good model if we want to do this IUI thing, and the peradventures will be in need of data, and data is not something that you can just get at the snap of a finger, especially when you're talking about the government, the bureaucracy and all of that. So by the time we start, if you start, let's say maybe like 3 weeks, right? Even when we want to start, I think we would have even maybe made request of the kind of data we need from the government, so that by the time the data is coming in, it will fit into our program. I know quite well that, we may not have so much time to run, the school on internet governance as in physical because of resources and so many other things. But in integrating these virtual classes into it as part of the preliminary process, right, I think will help a lot. And even right from the beginning, when you're starting the virtual classes, we would have known that, okay, whatever we're going to do, if it's going to be the IUI, if it's going to be the IIB, like we call it in Internet Society, that is Impact Assessment Brief, right? We're going to start from the beginning. We have figured it out. We have a theme that we're working with. So I think this may work in the case of IUI too. But what I may want us to also deliberate on is if we really want to get a very good result from this, right? So that means we need to get all the stakeholders together, right? So we need to involve the government even right from the beginning, because for us to get a very good result, the government must be involved. So if you want to contribute, so that's one perspective I want you to, throw into this discussion while I hand over to Olga.
Thank you very much. And I think this, when I knew about this blend session, I thought it was the perfect space to think about new ideas to bring to the schools. But I think at the same time that all the schools have been going through all these different concepts like access, multi-stakeholder environment, human rights, cross-cutting things, and environment. In the experience in the South School of Internet Governance is that we could perfectly blend it into, now we have 3 parts in the school. So the school is not 1 week, it's like 6-month program. We have a pre-training that it's online and self-assisted, perfectly would fit in there some videos and some important information. And thank you for inviting me to the Net Mundial meeting that you presented the indicators there. Thank you for that. I was present there. Henriette was there as well in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. And that could perfectly fit in this self-assisted part of the training that we do through 2 months before the school. Then it's the 5 days hybrid training, and then there is the research with the university. All this program is also supervised by a university in Argentina that we have partnered with. So I think we can work in including it very deeply into the program of the school. We also run the School of Internet Governance in Argentina, which is shorter. It's 3 days program, more focused on the Argentina issues. The relevance of multi-stakeholder, I think that the revision and bringing to our memory the principles of Net Mundial has been, for all of us, very, very important. Organizing a multi-stakeholder environment is not easy. It's much easier to do a multilateral one, where all the governments sit together with their advisors and they talk among them and they do a paper or whatever, which is perfectly important. But really doing a relevant multi-stakeholder space needs a lot of time in bringing the right stakeholders. And for the schools, it's also very interesting to build a group of fellows that it's really multi-stakeholder itself. So for having governmental representatives, as you were rightly mentioning, in Africa and Argentina, we have the same important mission to bring them. And once they get engaged, as Henriette rightly mentioned, they always get engaged in the program because they love the interaction with the fellows from different stakeholders and from experts also from different stakeholders. But it takes time. It takes time to build a group of fellows. It takes time to build the program. So that is part of the work of the schools and the beauty of one of the schools that we organize. And each one has its own particularities and its own focuses, but I think that the match with all the work that UNESCO is doing with the indicators is perfectly good. So, and now Avri especially, she is leading various activities that will focus on and other things that as a dynamic coalition, which is very important for all the schools. So I think it's a perfect moment. So once I knew that we were going to do this blend workshop, I think it's the start of a new initiative that will enhance the content of all our schools. I will stop here and maybe I can add something in a moment.
Hi, this is Avri. I'm jumping in now as I don't see any hands, and while you're figuring out where to go next, I think that some ideas that have been brought up here are great, especially the idea of as the dynamic coalition itself starts to look at its curriculum, because we had talked about, one of our ongoing activities is to have sort of sample curricula online, and we realize that we need to update them this year or starting this year, is to actually bring this IUI element and how one would do it there into that particular document, which would then give a hand and a starting place to many of the schools that, do look at that sample curriculum when they're starting up. So I think at this point, we've got a bit of time left,
Sorry,
and I think
Avery.
it's a good time
Sorry,
to
we
go
have.
on with discussion. But please,
Yes, we have a contribution from the room.
good. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Avri. I am Aziz Hilali from Morocco, and I want, if I may, just give an example from North Africa, which has been six since 2018 each year. And when we choose the learners, is from 7 countries of North Africa, and we try to have multi-stakeholder even within the 3 participants from each country. So the last SIG we organized, it was in Mauritania, and we each time we have meeting with the government, with all stakeholders, private sectors and government, to speak about the problem of North Africa, but particularly in Mauritania, because in North Africa we have the Sahara, is the biggest desert in the world. It's take I think 30% from the Africa, and we try to have some. So if I have a question for the panel, is how this IUI indicator to work with the global group and improve connectivity in undeserved area like the Sahara that I have said, because you have communities isolated and lack of telecommunication infrastructure. Thank you.
So sorry, I think Tatifik, you still have work to do here, because I think the question is actually directed to you. And for you to just expatiate on that more, I think we also need to talk about, okay, we want to integrate IUI into the SIG module, right, or curriculum. I beg your pardon. So, what do you think we should do? Because now IUI is a new concept, right, which is just coming up. And it's been around, right? But it's new to the SIG. That's what I mean when I say it's new in the sense that we are just integrating it into SIG. I guess I know that Aret has worked with that before, maybe the first time, and probably maybe she'll be going for the second one now, right? But like in some of the national schools, I'm sure we've not done that. So I'm telling you from Nigerian experience. So But I'm not thinking, I mean, it's time for us to look at how we can integrate that into the national school. Although we have agreed that, right, we should have like a cascaded model, okay, for the national, then going to the region, it should be more encompassing. But then you know that even if you want to carry out IUI, it's still going to be at the national level. So I think the SIG at the national level should be involved too, in the sense that, okay, we need to let people be aware of what is going on. That is one. Then if you want to do this assessment, I think I think it was Aaron that mentioned the fact that probably we need to do like a simulation, you know, even in the school, you know, so as to bring people up to speed with how IUI can be conducted. So I think we need to start looking at that. And of course, the issue of, you know, faculty, talking about somebody that's going to facilitate that. Of course, if you say I should go and facilitate something on IUI now, I have to start reading and reading. But for somebody like you, you've already been part of the system, you know so much about it. So what will be your advice in terms of getting faculty, you know, to facilitate that? Yeah.
So sorry, did you want me to be very quick? I wanted to respond sorry, so just a quick response first that's a very good question, James, but just to Aziz. Aziz, I think your question is how do the IUIs actually help us deal with some of the basic problems? Such as the lack of connectivity. I mean, and that's an IUI question, not necessarily a SIG question. And I think the idea of the IUIs is that once the national assessment has been made, that it comes up with recommendations and that there are actions that are identified to be addressed. But it does then remain up to the country to decide how to do that. What we feel it does, though, is that because you do the assessment in a collaborative, multi-stakeholder way, that creates a very good basis for which to collaborate on implementing and addressing identified priorities. And James, just in response to your question, I think it's a really good question. I think Sanda made the brilliant suggestion that we can do simulations. I think you are pointing out that if we want to do them well, we need the people who can do them well. And maybe this is something that can come out of this recommendation, some form of guideline on how that can be done. I think the one thing, though, I would caution is to separate simulation from real assessments. Assessments are also political. They are political at a national level. It's not always easy, as Poncelet also said, to get agreement, to get the data. So I think one would have to be fairly cautious that if you are using the IUIs in SIGs, that you're sensitive to that, and that's why maybe having at a national school, deciding how you do it would have to be sensitive and careful, and maybe having made up imaginary countries might in fact sometimes work better, still serve the same pedagogic purpose, but I do think one would have to be careful that you don't unintentionally undermine the opportunity to do an actual national assessment because you've used it in a school and somehow it has raised concerns. Sorry, that just occurred to me while you were talking.
I just wanted to add about people who don't know about the IUIs and would be willing to do the IUIs. Just to let you know that this IUI framework, it contains a very detailed step-by-step guidelines on how to implement the indicators. But UNESCO's support doesn't stop by just providing the guidelines. UNESCO provides technical support at every step of the assessment. Since this inception, we do build the capacity. We know that it's not something taught at schools, or it's a new idea for many countries. And the way we work, we provide the technical support. We do capacity building for the research team that wants to carry out the assessment. We work with the multi-stakeholder advisory board, and we accompany the research team and the country at every step of the assessment. So this is something that we've been doing, and we will continue to do. So Yes, and in addition to also to react on what you said about the national schools, I think as I mentioned, the multi-stakeholder advisory board is an integral part of the assessment, and in some ways, if a country has not yet engaged or started the assessment, in a way, the AFRISIG as a multi-stakeholder group, if we can call like that, could be the core of the multi-stakeholder advisory board that can then steer and guide the assessment with support from UNESCO.
Thanks. This is Avery. If I can jump in for a second. I just want to add a comment that was on the chat, and not everybody's being able to read the chat, but I think fits into this discussion is, and this was from Luis Martinez, is it time to have specialized IG schools, meaning SIGs on single themes such as human rights or connectivity? And I would add, in the context that you are all talking about in terms of the URI. I think the idea, by the way, of using an imaginary country instead of your actual country is an excellent one, having designed many of these exercises at the time. And there was a question and answer from Henriette, and then she can follow through on it. I think it is. AfriSig is already doing that. So I'll put my hand down now, but I just wanted to make sure I got the online comments in. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Avery this is the perfect starting point to build guidelines for from our coalition to all the schools, and then each school has its own way of organizing the group of fellows, to call the experts to build a real multi-stakeholder program. So with these guidelines, perhaps not that as an assessment, that could be a little bit more into the particularities of each region country, but to build from the dynamic coalition a group of guidelines that so we can use the indicators within blended into the program. And responding to my dear friend Luis Miguel, in our school every year we have a special point of focus on the program. It's cybersecurity or development goals, or every year we find a focus, which is not the only thing that it's included in the program, but there is a special emphasis, and it changes every year depending. Last year was artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. It depends on what is happening in the internet environment.
Just to add one point and to confirm what Olga said. So I think that's the right way to go in terms of, for every session of the school you're going to have, there should be a focal theme, a thematic area that you want to focus on. However, of course, you are still going to deal with other modules that are relevant to the school, but there should be a focus, and the focus will be what you will be building your output document on, be it a policy brief, be it internet assessment brief, be it the IUI like this one we're talking about. So I think that is very important. But for me, the issue of having specialized school on internet governance, well, I think, well, I don't know how that is going to work out. Why I'm saying that is because now we're talking about having something like a syllabus, right? Something that can work for all schools, which would be like, okay, first, there must be these fundamental modules that you need to take, right, before you now talk about where you're focusing on based on your environment or based on those hot topics that are coming up within your environment. So I think we should focus more on that for now, right? Because that will help, this coalition. Thank you very much. And I don't know if anybody wants to make an... Okay, Avery?
No, there was a question in the audience.
Okay, yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Jose Fisa Khadudban from Chad. I coordinate the Chad Youth IGF. In terms of collaboration and multi-stakeholder engagement, in these processes, I think CSO play a very important role. I mean, in creating awareness, etc. So I think it's quite important to empower, I mean, civil society organizations to be able to address these issues together and contribute in the process. So how does the SAIC can enable us to have a program that will bring together all the SAICs, and in countries that we have even not yet conducting national assessment of internet development, to have a framework or let's say formal guidelines to work on together in collaboration. Thank you.
All right, if I may just make a comment on that before, maybe if you want to make a comment on that too. Yeah, so let me use our model as an example. So in Nigeria, we have the NIGF, that is Nigeria Internet Governance Forum, multi-stakeholder advisory group. That group consists of the civil society, of course, ably represented by Internet Society. By the way, I'm the president of ISOC in Nigeria. So ISOC is a primary member of the NIGF MAG in Nigeria. However, we have other members too, right? We have the government agencies, the relevant, sorry, let me put that word, relevant government agencies that are members of the same MAG I'm talking about. And I will just go straight. We have the NITDA, that is National Information Technology Development Agency, because of its role within the IG space. We have the Nigerian Communications Commission as a member of the NIGF MAG. Okay. Then we have the NIRA, that is the Nigeria Internet Registration Association. It's also a member. Then we have other members too. The academia, yes, the academias too are nominated into the NIGF MAG. So if we want to have even the school, what we normally do is we have to collaborate with the NIGF MAG. We carry them along. As a matter of fact, anytime the year is going to start in a matter of weeks now. So the process starts all over again. So when we start the process, we have meetings. As we are having the meeting towards the NIGF, the NSIG, that is Nigerian School on Internet Governance, do give reports at every NIGF meeting to show that, okay, this is where we are, this is what we are doing, and this is where we want you to come in. So it's more like a collaborative effort. We work together. So that multi-stakeholderism has been established. So we already have a structure that we are working with. So it's just that, okay, yeah, ISOC is the convener of the school. So we work with all these guys. And in fact, when we want to make a call for application too, we do let them know that we want, fellows that are going to participate in the school, that is the cohort for that year, to be from all those places too. In addition to that, of course, we make it like, okay, let everybody participate. I mean, it's thrown open. The youth, especially the youth and the aged ones. Interestingly, this year, when we finish the school, we have one very old man in the school. And they were like, okay, well, yeah, of course, I want to know what is going on within the IG space. Thank you very much. I rest my case.
Do we have?
I don't seem to have any hands up on the online space. With 10 minutes left, perhaps people want to take a little chance to sum up and such. I have been working, since we have to have almost already contributed our takeaways and our calls to action. I've been trying to pick those up as you all spoke. But please, as I say, I don't have any online requests to speak, but you've got a few minutes left to do any summing up and such that you would like.
Thank you very much, Avery. I don't have much. I think just in terms of, the comment from Chad, I think we should discuss that. I think, you are raising good suggestions. which also I think we can use the dynamic coalition to have those kinds of discussions. And I think these are fantastic ideas. You know, it just also makes me realize that, and this is my takeaway, is that I think most schools are operating on a fairly shoestring budget. The Dynamic Coalition is operating on a small budget, and thanks very much. I see the ISOC Foundation in the room. They are supporting us. Thanks to Sandra and Rainer for making that possible, and to Avri for doing that work. And I think if we do have more capacity as a community of SIGs, that will also make it easier for us to partner with other initiatives like the IUI one. And I don't think it will happen overnight, but I do think there's a need and a demand and a will to do that. And I hope that we can grow in how we share these ideas and take on these kind of partnerships. So just thanks to everyone, to UNESCO, to Avri, to the SIGs and the IUIs, and everyone for coming to this session. Over to you.
This session will be recorded and also will be available for the schools that were not participating today and were not on here on the IGF or online. So it's a reference. Just we from our school, regional and national, we offer our help in sharing experiences, and I think that the coalition is the perfect space for work together with the other coalition and build upon all the work that Avri is doing in framing all these indicators into our curricula and our activities. So feel free to contact us, even though if you were not in this room virtually or on site, and if you look at this recording afterwards. And thank you all and thank you, Avri, for being there. What time is it there, Avri? Is it very early for you now?
Oh, it's morning, you know, it's 6:30 in the morning. It's nothing compared to the 1 o'clock in the morning session I did earlier. So,
Okay.
so very much, I totally believe in living as flexible a schedule as I can and moving my schedule around to suit the place I am online participating in. I really appreciate, you know, all the contributions and the talk that came in. I appreciate having received the points that I'm now trying to edit into the report. We'll be going out with a report on this. I'll be consulting you all. And thank you very much. And especially as this was the last of the regular sessions, or in the last of the regular session slots before the end, I understand how you're all eager to get yourself to the final sessions, the closing sessions. And thank you so much. And thanks for helping me do this from an online perspective. So I'll pass it back to see people on stage to end it, to close it. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't have much to add. I just need to say that I really enjoyed this discussion and the concrete suggestions that came out of this discussion, and we're willing and ready to continue the cooperation from UNESCO on the IUIs with the SIGs. Thank you so much, Avri, for coordinating and organizing this session. Thank you to Andiet, Arjunzul Online, and Olga, James, and the contributions from the audience. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with many of you. Thank you.
All right. So on behalf of the SIG coalition too, we want to thank you, Tatibi, for a good job well done. We appreciate this, and I hope this is just going to be the beginning of the collaboration. So we're just starting, and we want it to continue. So please be available anytime we call. And of course, I'm sure any moment from now, you'll be receiving calls from even the national schools, especially with respect to the IUI. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the end of this session, and I think we should give ourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Photo session.
Can we make a picture? Avri, don't